So I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself before I get into the nitty-gritty about Hidden Gems property. So initially I studied industrial design and technology at Loughborough University in the UK. I then went on and worked for Bombardier Transportation in their rail interiors department, and then on to Mars Drinks with their Flavier vending machines as a testing engineer. Unfortunately I got made redundant from Mars Drinks, but that actually was a blessing in disguise as it allowed me to follow some of my other skill sets, which was actually in fact artistic gymnastics and performance. So I represented Great Britain in the 2005-2009 World University Games, and this actually allowed me to then go on to be a stunt and acrobatic performer, which took me across Europe, into the Middle East, and then finally over into Macau, China, where my wife and I were living for the last 7 years or so. So whilst in Macau, China, my wife and I set up on our first business venture, which was to help build body confidence through alternative forms of fitness and allow people to discover their hidden talents. So through this, we set up our own studio. We started with one person in our apartment doing private lessons, and it soon grew. So we wanted to renovate our own studio in 2015 to create a home away from home for people to be able to come, be comfortable with their bodies, and learn their hidden talents and things that they didn't know they could do. In December 2018, last year, we ended up selling the business with 16 staff members, 200 students, and running 48 classes a week. So we were pretty proud of that. We were quite happy that we'd achieved our mission on that front. So then, from there, you can see the renovations of our studio over in Macau. We had 7 languages, and we did top-to-bottom renovations from the sewage works all the way to the electricals, the plumbing, the heating, the HVAC systems, all new flooring, and we eventually managed to create this beautiful little space for everyone to come and create their home away from home. So then we moved to Port Alfred. And part of the deal that I made with my wife to get her to come to China initially was to say she could choose wherever in the world she wanted to move next. So this is where we and our 3 kids jumped ship and moved over to Port Alfred for her to study at the 43 Air School to become a commercial pilot, which is what her dream always has been. So, onto Hidden Gems Property. We were founded in the middle of last year, and we started trading at the beginning of this year. We're a UK-based property investment company investing in the north of England and Scotland, and we have a longer-term plan to be the backbone of corner community projects throughout the UK. So a few fundamentals to go from the beginning. We only purchase income-generating properties. We always, no matter how big the bond, it always has to be income-generating. We also only purchase properties with value-adding potential, which leads us on to the income mantra of the money in, money out principle that we use, which basically means that we do everything we can to purchase a property without having a bond initially. That means we purchase in cash or with bridging finance and investor finance, and then we renovate the property, and by renovating we increase the value. By increasing the value, we then go and talk to the bond originators and the mortgage brokers and say, can you give us a bond on this new increased value? And because of that, they give us a higher bond, which means we can get much more and the majority of our equity out of the property, and then we can do the same thing over and over again. And when I understood this philosophy and this concept, my mind was blown. Literally, I thought, the world is my oyster, there's no end to what we can do with this. So, our long-term strategy is to be able to have a network of hidden gem properties throughout the UK that then back up and are the cornerstone for our hidden talent studios, which will help to support the confidence building in deprived youth to be able for them to discover their hidden talents. So the market need, there's a massive market need in the UK at this point in time. I'd like to focus on the fact that there are over 700,000 empty properties in the UK, but there's also 1.1 million people needing a property. So we're trying to put 2 and 2 together and help with that need. I'd like to introduce you to some of the team over here. We have everyone. I've spent lots of time building up the team, many of whom are BNI members in the UK. So we have sources, brokers, we have management agents, renovation strip-out guys, we have installation managers and scaffolding, and we also have the power team, and specifically I'd like to draw your attention to these guys. Michelle, who is our purchasing solicitor up in Scotland, and then Gerald on the top right, who is our investor solicitor, and he acts specifically for our investors. He creates the loan agreements and the paperwork for our investors to make sure that they are comfortable with the investment agreement that they have with us and that they are legally protected. We also have Nick Burns in the middle, who's a foreign exchange specialist, who works for Lighthouse FX, who we've built a solid relationship with, and he's vetted, and he says that he knows that we do exactly what we say on the tin. So between these three guys, there are three ring-fenced client accounts, which means any investment money is checked 3 times before it comes down to Hidden Gems. We also have Marianne and Paul down in the bottom corner, who are from Kingsmith Property, who we've now formed a partnership with, as we have a very similar strategy and we have a very similar mission to create homes, so we have joined forces. So now we're coming to the investment options that we potentially offer. So we have angel investment, we have sophisticated investment, and joint venture partnerships. So if anybody would be interested in taking their kids on a big holiday somewhere, buying their children the ideal birthday present, or they would like to be able to get their kids into extra activities, or even that they would like to be able to get into property investment themselves, angel investment is the way forward for those guys. So this is where it would be an investment on a specific renovation project, generally between 6 to 12 months long. The actual renovation takes between 2 to 12 weeks, but the rest of the time is to allow for the paperwork, the bonds, and all the legals to come through. And if you can see at the bottom, if someone invested something in the region of 200,000 Rand, we would be able to give them a return of an extra 20,000 Rand at the end of 12 months. But if the project is finished early, we can also give them 20,000 Rand within 9 months if the paperwork comes through before that. So if there is an individual, if anyone is interested in adding to their pension pot, having a passive income, or potentially moving abroad, getting their money into a stable currency, then sophisticated investment is the way forward for you. This is used as Hidden Gems working capital throughout the year, and it's a completely hands-off deal. You get the money comes back into people's account at the end of each month, and it's ideal for moving abroad and longer-term goals. And as you can see down the bottom, again, for a 200,000 Rand investment, after 5 years, we can give a healthy 50% extra return to make people have 300,000 at the end of their time with us. So there's also people that think big, anyone that's thinking to create their own business, have working capital to start up their own property investment, or to buy a new car, do renovations on their house, set up a college fund. Then we do joint venture partnerships as well. And joint venture partnerships is when we do a flip, we renovate the project, and then we set it on for a profit. We form legally binding partnerships with these guys, and then we basically, both parties are accountable for what happens, but the profit is also split 50-50. These are high return investments. As you can see down at the bottom, it needs about 1.5 million invested in it, but we can also see that you can get 165,000 Rand within a 6-month period of extra interest coming in from that. So, how do we secure our investments? First of all, we make sure that the numbers add up. We do our due diligence very, very thoroughly. We're very good at our due diligence. We also have investment loan agreements, and I have one right here. I have recently done, it's not that one. I have recently angel invested a colleague of mine, and in here there's a clause number 2, which is loan security, where I have a first charge over the property. So that means if anything happens to him or his business, the property defaults to me and I'm protected. We also offer this for sizable investments in our company as well. We also have ring-fenced accounts with our solicitors and a 5-tier safety system to ensure that the money is safe and people get their loans back. So we basically repeat what works. There's no point breaking it if it's not, fixing it if it's not broken. These are the areas that we invest in currently in the UK, and these are the areas that we look at from key market indicators at the moment up in Scotland. So as you can tell, there are a lot of benefits from investing with us. But I hear you ask, why don't I just go to the banks? Why don't I just go to the banks here in South Africa? Well, first of all, in addition to what we've said before, you also have the peace of mind of knowing that your money is going into a solid and stable currency. You also know that we work flexibly with our investors, and we also can fit investor circumstances, and so we have a very tailored approach. And we also want to share our knowledge. There are 700,000 homes to go around, so there's plenty for everyone. So we want people to learn how well their money is working for them. So in respect to the UK versus South Africa, first of all, there are equal rights for tenants and landlords. Here in South Africa, there are a couple of loopholes that if you fall foul to, it is possible for a tenant to be able to stay in your property without paying rent if the judge deems that they cannot afford to live by themselves. And if this is the case, this doesn't happen in the UK. There's lots of rules and legislations to protect you from this. There also is a lower inflation rate, and there's also unemployment is only 4% in comparison to the nearly 28% here in South Africa, which means it's much easier to find good tenants. And also we have very low mortgage rates, and we're a strong and stable currency. So, you all have a piece of paper in front of you about the ideal referrals for me. I would very much like to talk to people with joint passports, business owners and entrepreneurs specifically who already have an understanding of investing, and also retirees potentially who complain about their pension sums. So I'm Tim Sanders from Hidden Gems Property. Thank you very much.
Thank you.